Hello and welcome to the New York Empire podcast presented by Greatest Ultimate Bag. I'm Dan Hilton, and joining me for a special mid-season attention of the pod is two mid-season additions to the Empire, John Randolph and Jibran Mieser. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
New addition mid-season is a common occurrence in the AUDL. So let's start there where, John, I'm going to have you go first here. Who and what was the pitch for you to join the Empire?
I'd say the pitch was multi-pronged. I talked a lot to Solomon Rushmeyer Bailey, who is my friend and old teammate at college. And then from there, talked a little bit to Matt Stevens, who really made a great pitch and sold me on a great organization. So I'm excited to join the team.
And Jibran, a bit easier just picking up the phone.
Sure. I was just talking with Katz and Jeff Babbitt a little bit, and then similar to what John said, was talking with them, and then I started talking to Kat, and just made sense for me. Yeah.
Well, that's what they say. Once you start talking to Kat, it's kind of over at that point. So yeah, Jibran, you did lead the Empire and the AUDL on top of the AUDL world in 2019 after winning the title. So, I mean, did part of that itch go back into your decision? Of course. I mean, obviously, did you hesitate on? I mean, obviously, you didn't wait to see how the Empire were doing, but 7-0 is or 6-0 is a pretty good time to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. Empire is like a great team. It's a great organization, and I, like you said, I played on the team for 2 seasons prior, and I always, I didn't want to leave for any particular reason. So for me, it was more of kind of just a scheduling thing at the beginning of this year. And but luckily, after the talks I had, it made sense to join midseason. So, and I was glad we were able to make it happen.
Well, it is a great time to join. Of course, this show is coming out just days before the matchup with the DC Breeze at Joseph F. Facina Field at 7 p.m. on June the 10th. Just need to get that plug in there. So I should ask for both of you, and Jibran, you can go first on this one. How did the coaching staff and your teammates, many of which, as we'll get into, that you knew before, help get you up to speed for that game against Toronto last weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it helps a lot that I have some familiarity with a lot of the team. Even the coaching staff, I have known Anthony Nunez for a long time. He was my coach in the youth club scene, and just playing with a good chunk of the team in seasons prior, it wasn't too hard to jump in, especially with the new additions. For me, they're all just great players, and that's part of the reason why it was an easy decision to come back to the team, because of something like the game we just had was just it was easy to slip in and just start playing good ultimate with everyone.
Yeah, and John, obviously we're going to get into your college career. We're getting into all of that. But between your college career, which we will get to, and your club career, you're already no stranger to big games. So it's not about a big game moment for you. But how do you think the biggest game so far of your AUDL career will be different as far as looking forward to DC?
I think it'll be different in that, as much as I can in terms of preparation and talking to other guys on the team, there will be a lot less preparation than the biggest moments in club and college. Because I will be coming in really just after one other game and one other practice. And it's really going to be thrown into the fire against a really good team. So it'll be a lot more of like putting the wings on the plane as we're flying it. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so we will wrap things back up in the AUDL later on. But now, Jibran, you kind of mentioned it, saying how long you've known Anthony Nunez. And at this point, I want to go all the way, way back. Okay, Jibran, you're not that old. But so for you, way back was, about 15, 16 years ago. And since in New Jersey Ultimate, it's probably a story we've heard before. Of course, we have many New Jersey products on the Empire. How did you get into Ultimate?
So I went to a summer camp when I was a kid, and they had like a ton of sports there, and it was a lot of fun. But my favorite was always ultimate frisbee, and so that's where I learned how to play. And a counselor at that camp was, a lot of New Jersey people will know the name Ryan Beline. He was a counselor there, who, he went on to start, the whole program at Westfield High School and middle school. So growing up, like getting older at summer camp, and then as Beline got Westfield together, I was able, he kind of invited me and helped me out, like learning the game, and I played with them a little bit, and that's how I met Nunez. And he was the coach of Columbia High School at the time, and also the coach of Devil, the YCC team in the area. So just playing and knowing them, and then making Devil in 2011 was my like exposure to like real organized club ultimate, and just kind of went from there, playing at Rutgers and then into club and pro, and so that's how it went for me.
Yeah, and I think people have heard, obviously, listen to the Empire podcast, the Devil story before. Again, it's the one that's pretty tried and true. But John, I think Empire fans may need a little explainer to the ultimate scene in Seattle, especially the high school scene out there. So how did you first get into the sport? Because I don't want to say that people have called you a prodigy, but I did know of you when you were in high school. So it does say something about the high school ultimate scene in Seattle.
Yeah, I was definitely a silver spoon type of kid, given the ultimate world. I started playing in fourth grade at a little school in Seattle, and just like practically every school in Seattle, it had ultimate as one of its premier sports that everybody wanted to play. Because it was a small school, I was able to play every sport. I played, every sport that they offered, that is. I played soccer and basketball and track and cross country and ultimate. And then as I went on and went into high school and had to choose and pare down the sports, I was obviously left with the best sport in the world, ultimate. And I was really fortunate to have good coaches, most of whom were experienced club players, all through my time from fourth grade through 12th grade in Seattle. So I had a really, really good experience in the Seattle youth scene.
Yeah, well, I would say, John, much like the NBA is an underrated producer of top talent, Washington State isn't bad for ultimate either. Though I think the success of a certain club team has given it some attention over the last decade plus, of course. But between the likes of Khalif El-Salam and Ben Lewis, is there something about Washington State Ultimate that teaches players to make big plays? Because it seems like that's the reputation of the players that are coming out of Seattle right now.
uh, it's hard for me to say whether Seattle in particular teaches its players to make big plays. But it's funny you say that. I kind of wish we were more known for creating players who made winning plays.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think for all of us, North Carolina and the Triangle does have a monopoly on producing those kind of high school talents at the moment. But yeah, Jibran, now we're going to move on to the college scene. So not only are you the last of the Rutgers contingent to come on the show, and a reminder to Empire fans that is Josue Aloro, Albert Alacan, Maddie Weintraub, Scott Shue, and now LeBron. I think I got everybody, but you and Scott are the only two holdovers from previous seasons, with Scott joining this year as well. So what does it say about the Rutgers program, which has now produced Chris McLaughlin as well, to have so many players have such sustained success in the sport at the highest level right now?
That's a great question. I think, when it comes to the Rutgers program, being a big school, but in the ultimate world, the Metro East can feel very small.
You can throw all the shade. I'm from the Metro East too. You can throw all the shade. Go ahead,
Jibran. Yeah, so I think it just speaks to, the culture that we had at Rutgers. It was a team full, at least when I was there, but, I feel strongly that, it was the culture that we learned from, and that we hopefully passed down, that, we are there playing ultimate because we love ultimate. And, through that love for the game, we want to do well and we want to work hard. So, there's always been, a strong emphasis on, working hard on and off the field, even with a busy schedule, like, during college. And, we don't get, a lot of big name players, obviously, in the Metro East, but, we get some, local talent once in a while. And it's nice when that, that local talent comes to a school like Rutgers, and we're able to like foster them and actually, continue their growth even in like a small, you say, market of college ultimate. So, just I think it speaks to the Machine Ultimate program, to how like the balance of hard work and fun. And I'm glad I was a part of it. And you mentioned Scott. I'm glad I was able to come back to the Empire and play with him now that he's on the team. So it's been pretty nice to be back.
Yeah, I feel like you've completed your infinity gauntlet of Rutgers teammates from back in the day. And as a follow-up to that, Jibran, I've asked all of your Rutgers teammates, so it kind of is a prerequisite that I have to ask you. What was that experience like going to nationals in 2014?
It was unbelievable, because it was, a goal years in the making, and to go that long and just continue to work hard, even, when you have multiple chances. So, you'd have to deal with a lot of disappointment to like continue to, persevere through that and keep working to finally, reach your goal. It was just, it was an incredible feeling, thinking, a lot of the sacrifice that we made, it was finally worth it, and instead of doing some things, more fun things that you want to do in school, especially when you have time off from class and work, like, we're playing or we're throwing or we're working out. So to finally have all that sacrifice rewarded was, it just made it all worth it. And to do that for something you care about is, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because of course you already mentioned Columbia High School, which ultimate historians know that name quite well. And Rutgers was a former national champion as well. So you were kind of, again, continuing to ascend to that history. And speaking of college nationals, speaking of national championships, John, we're shifting over to you now. I know Brown is an Ivy League school, but they have also produced more Callahan winners than any other school. And we're going back in the history books here, dating back to Forge Muller in 1999, Justin Safdie in 2000, Pauline Lauterbach in the women's division in 2002, then the fastest man on grass, Josh Zipperstein, who can still beat most ultimate players in a race, I'm thinking. He won it in 2005. And then, of course, your teammate Aziz Adeyemi last year. And so you probably heard this question about a million times since last Monday when you won the sixth Callahan Award in Brown history. But yeah, what did it mean to you to be the sixth Callahan winner in the history of Brown's programs?
It means a lot. It's really an honor to be included in that group of amazing players who you just listed. And Zip might be the fastest guy on grass, but we play turf now, so he might have to race Aziz to see who is faster. But it's incredible, and I think it just speaks to sustained excellence from the program at Brown and its ability to develop players. And there's nothing more special than having the award presented to me by Aziz, who's been an amazing friend of mine for the past 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, and we have to do the sour question before we get to the better question, but you were asked to go from a heartbreaking defeat in the national championship game against North Carolina right into the AUDL in less than a week. So how did you reset yourself, not only physically, but just emotionally and mentally from Tuesday to Saturday?
Definitely a lot of big emotions for sure, but at the base of it, my emotions are pretty local. I try not to think, or maybe my friends would tell you my brain isn't big enough to consider larger time scales and take into account emotions from yesterday or tomorrow. Very much my emotions are guided by the current moment. And so when I went up to Toronto, I wasn't really thinking about anything else. I was just thinking, hey, I get another chance to play Ultimate, which I love, with a bunch of fun guys. So I think of it as, distinct games and distinct events and times, and therefore distinct emotions.
Well, let's talk about a very good distinct memory and distinct time. The 2019 college championship alongside the aforementioned Solomon Roycemeyer Bailey was, of course, a highlight, if not the highlight of your college career. Of course, winning a national championship. It's hard to go up from there. What was the biggest hurdle, though, to winning the big one in 2019 with that team? And I know you were one of the underclassmen. So a lot of it, I mean, Solomon answered the same question. A lot more was pinned on him because he was a captain at the time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Saul would have a better answer for this than me. What I would say was a big hurdle is, although we have a sort of long and storied program, at that time we didn't have a very long sort of institutional memory of going to nationals, because the year before had been our first time going to nationals in about 10 years. And so we, great programs like Pitt or UNC, it's like every year the expectation is you go to nationals and you're vying for a championship. Whereas for us in 2019, year before, we had gone and been a little bit sort of, just happy to go to nationals. And so for that whole year, we were putting in tons of work and trying really hard, but it was sort of our first, swing of everybody on the team where like we were really gunning for a national championship. So I guess sort of inexperience in pursuing a true championship from a lot of people on that team was a big hurdle.
Interesting. And Jibran, so we're shifting a little bit gear to, we don't talk often about club accomplishments in the AUDL world, but so we won't even ask about the 2021 second teamer over there in John, but you were named the 2021 Defensive Player of the Year in the club division, the men's division. Is that the kind of award that you thought you'd win when you were a younger player?
Not really, no. I mean, as a younger player, I always just I just wanted to get better because I knew, in college I followed a lot of, ultimate club, everything, the top players, watched a ton of film, and I knew I just want to get better. That was always my mentality. I want to improve all aspects of my game. And so it wasn't anything, I never really thought about awards. It's kind of like a weird thing, I feel like in ultimate, but I was honored to get that award. And I just, again, it just kind of motivates me to get better, because I know, it's cool that I won this award, but I know that I can be an even better defender than that. So, what does that mean for me as a player? And, I just look forward to exploring that and, and improving.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can clearly see you and John both jumping on the D line, not skipping a beat against Toronto, at least. And so now moving back to the AUDL a bit, John, you were a teenager on the Seattle Cascades in 2017, 2018. Now, I know you were already taking your lumps in practice for the club team sockeye, of course, but what was your introduction to the AUDL?
Let's see. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I remember making that roster and being so surprised I made it. And, being teammates with a bunch of great players. But at that time, we weren't that good, but we got to play against the San Francisco team, who had a lot of the best players in the world. They had Ashlyn Joy and Cassidy Rasmussen, among other great players of that caliber. And they would every game pretty much blow us out of the water. And I remember being in awe of them the first time we played them, and getting destroyed in my matchup. But every so often they would make a mistake, or I would get open, or I would get a block or something like that. And those are the moments that made me think hey, these guys who I've watched on TV, these guys who I've looked up to are human too. And so maybe I can get to their level.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good story. I mean, as far as even that was 2017. So even that was a good few years ago, we're already but now getting to that level, playing on the Empire. And now you're on that team of the Giants, of the all conquering undefeated force. And Jibran, I mean, we're going all the way back now for the AUDL, playing on the 2013 Hammerheads. Then you move on to the Rumble of MOU. your pro career at least started with a few more losses than wins. So how did those experiences, taking some of those L's, prepare you to win the 2019 title?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a great question. I think, going back to the Metro East, we experience, a lot of loss. And it's in those moments that, you can truly develop, how you respond in those moments. And when you can, look at, losing, you could stare at losing in the face and say, okay, I'm just going to get up and I'm going to try again. That's what I can, say I've learned from, all those early days, especially on the Hammerheads and with the Rumble. And, it just makes you feel at a certain point that, just harking back to things I've talked about, just, trying to get better all the time. It just helps with that. And yeah, that's a great question. I think, it just, in the end, it just helps you strive to get better. And, eventually you're able to make a team like, as good as the Empire is. And you go on a run like we did that year. And, you finally find yourself, on the side that you want to be on.
Well, yeah, we've got a few more questions here, Jibran. And sticking with 2019, on the way to that title, there were ups and downs and changes along the way. So you played primarily on the O-line throughout the regular season, then played largely on the D-line for the postseason. What did the coaching staff, and again, Brian Jones is always in my inbox if I reveal too many of his secrets. So without revealing any of Brian Jones' well-kept secrets, what did the coaching staff ask of you with that change?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they really asked much of me. I feel like I'm the type of player that, you can plug me in where you want me to play, and I'll play my game, and, I'll do my best to execute whatever the game plan is. And so, that year in particular, we had such a ridiculous O-line, with Jack Williams and Grant Lindsley and Ben and like, so by taking me off of such a stacked line, you really weren't missing anything. And I think it made more sense to be on the defensive side, where I could have probably a little more impact. And Coach Brian Jones decided to do that for that playoff game. And it was a good change for us for that game. And, and then I continued to do that for our championship run.
Well, from both of you, kind of now going to this year, we're seeing that the two-time AUDL MVP Ben Yacht, at least for last week and maybe moving forward, has switched over to that D-line to play with, not to play with the two of you, but you get the point. So what does it do for your whole team, though? Not only signing up, showing up, but seeing a two-time MVP, we'll say making the sacrifice of being, the fastest player to 300 goals this past weekend. Congratulations to him and Cat Stevens for both reaching 300 and, different time spans. But with Ben Yacht, just doing it. And then in a few weeks' time, he's 24 assists away from hitting 300 in that category. So to watch a guy who puts up the numbers like that, just selflessly move over to the D-line like that and kind of get rid of some of his stats, if you will, we'll say in the long run, what does that do to your ability to cohesively just join this team and understand what you're signing up for?
Yeah, Jibran came to practice and Yacht was like, oh, he's on the D-line? I want to play D-line now. No, but really, it just speaks to his versatility and selflessness, especially because D-line players don't usually earn the accolades quite as much as O-line players, and especially a guy like him who is very competitive, has won the MVP twice, and I'm sure would love to win it again. I think it says a lot that he's willing to move to the D-line because that's the best thing for the team, and maybe sacrifice a little bit of personal glory.
Yeah, John said it pretty well. Ben Yacht is, he's all about winning. And, like John said, it just shows his selflessness and, he knows how dangerous the team can be. And, he gets the news that he's moving the D-line and he's like, oh, awesome. that's his response. So, shows what kind of player he is, teammate he is.
Well, yeah. Then speaking about you two individually on the field, John, this is for the younger players. What's the key to good footwork?
The key is to play a lot and try really hard and try to get low and make a lot of ground contacts and touch your guy as much as possible. And then if you do that over and over again, you'll get good at footwork.
Well, John, Jibran, I'm going to shift it a bit for you. Without giving away all of your secrets, what's the most important thing about shutting down an in cut?
Focus, honestly. Like, you get to the level where you know what you're supposed to do on defense, and it just comes down to execution and effort, really. So and that all starts with just being focused. And when you're focused, you can bring the effort, you can bring the technique, and from there you can execute whatever the game, whether that's stopping an in cut or an out cut, whatever the game plan is. It starts with focus.
I mean, I am going to add, for John, being very, very quick is helpful. And for you, Jibran, I'm going to add being very, very fast is also very helpful to both of those things. I just want to make sure that we cover all of our bases there. So, Jibran, actually back in 2019, I did ask a bunch of your teammates who the fastest on the team is. And many of them did say you at the time, unsurprisingly. So since you're only turning 29 next Monday, do you think they'll still say it's you, or does this new version of the Empire have some other candidates? And I don't say everybody said you, because I can say names. Jeff Babbitt did not say you. He said Jeff Babbitt. So a bunch of other teammates did say you.
They said I was the fastest in 2019.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I don't believe that, but I'd have to say probably not, because we have players like Jeff Babbitt and Ben Yacht and Jack Williams who are just on another level in my mind. And so I'm going to say no. I would want to be the fastest. I'm going to try to be the fastest.
Yeah, I think Antoine
Davis, we
have
some incredible players.
Yeah, Antoine Davis has some speed too.
How can I forget? He's, I haven't played with him too much, so of course Antoine Davis. He might be number one, actually.
Yeah, John. So I'm going to give you an easier one then here. Nicknames are always a bit of a hot button issue in the Ultimate world. Of course, it makes my prep a lot more difficult because, there are guys named Scoop and Spoon, and I don't know who's who, and they just have their nicknames. So for you, there seems to be two contenders right now. It seems to be JR, one I've heard a lot, and it's the one I hear more, and Johnny Ultimate. So if you're going to be selling merchandise, what are you sticking with there? Are you going JR and just really leaning into that, or would you fully commit to Johnny Ultimate?
Well, it's not really up to me, but I would go with JR.
Jibran, do you agree? Is that where the tides are going? Or if you were his marketing director, would you tell him to pivot at this point?
No, I'm a JR fan. I like the JR. It's quick, it's clean nickname. Yeah.
All right, and I think it's Jibs for you, right?
That's what they call me. Yeah.
All right, Jib. So as a former teammate of two-time MVP Ben Yacht, we've already talked about, was there anything that surprised you about the man you knew from the field when you got to living with him? And again, this is all just like safe for work and fun stuff for the pod.
Sure. No, not he wasn't different at all. He's the same, just joyful Ben Yacht that you see out there on the field, blowing kisses at everyone. He's just a fun guy. He's always down to just hang out or have a good time, go throw, whatever, nothing crazy to share with you. Just I had a good time living with him, and I look back at those times for sure.
Well, I think to maybe both of your credits, as a lot of your teammates have seen, I do my best to do my homework to surprise guys or come up with things from the past. And I asked teammates, I did my digging, and both of you are pretty squeaky clean. You guys are just, as I was told by many people, they're just chill, relaxing guys. What do they like to do? They like to play Ultimate. And no, they just like to read and hang out and chill and watch movies. And so I don't really have too much other than one for you, John. This is in the Wayback Machine. Do you still believe that bow ties are better than regular ties, or have you converted in your adulthood?
I don't know about better, but they're pretty cool. They might be cooler than regular ties. The only problem is they're impossible to tie.
Well, that'll be something that hopefully both of you get to work on, maybe on a flight or a plane to Madison, maybe for a championship weekend, something like that. It'll certainly give you something to do on the plane. So for both of you, Jibran, John, again, we are looking ahead to DC this weekend. So good luck to both of you in that one. And thanks for coming on and joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And
Thanks for having us, Dan.
thanks to you, the listeners, as this wraps up another edition of the New York Empire podcast from the entire New York Empire family. We'll talk to you soon.